process that should be very simple, but it turns out to be very, very complicated? Or a process that you should thought would be simple because the result itself is simple, but the process is still complicated? The first thing that comes to my mind when I think about this sort of situation is IKEA furniture. Everybody has done IKEA furniture at least one point in their lives, and most people spend a lot more time than you would think to just build something as simple as a chair. Some people can spend over an hour sitting there trying to build this chair and still end up with extra pieces at the end, and you don't even know where these pieces go. This happens all the time, and you always think afterwards, there must be a better way. The book, The Goal, by Elihu Goldratt, is all about this better way. It is a book about business processes and business designs to make them more efficient and have less waste and better quality products. However, this can always be attributed back to your own life as well. In a foreword about the book, the author writes, "The goal is about new principles of manufacturing. It's about people trying to understand what makes their world tick so that they can make it better. As they think logically and consistently about their problems, they are able to determine cause and effect relationships between actions and results." I've got 3 principles about this book, The Goal, that I'm going to be speaking to you all about today. The first is the bottleneck theory. The second is the true definition of productivity. And the third is the goal. The first principle, the bottleneck theory. The bottleneck theory is more focused on what actually happens in manufacturing. This one is a little bit more difficult to apply to your everyday life. The bottleneck theory basically states that in every process, there is going to be one step of that process that takes longer than other parts, has less capacity than other parts, or has some other problem that makes it take longer and restricts the flow of your whole process as a whole. The book describes it as, if there is a bottleneck in your process, it will have huge amounts of work in process around it. That means there will be a big stack of work in process before it or after it. In the book, there is a group of people trying to save their plant, their manufacturing plant. And the first thing they had to do was figure out where these bottlenecks lie in their process. They ended up finding 2 machines, and the problems with these machines are almost every part that they produced had to go through these 2 machines. Whereas the parts may only have to go through a few other machines outside these 2 machines, but these 2 machines took up 80% of the process. So it was a major bottleneck for them. And they had to figure out a way to make the bottlenecks take up less of the process time so that the whole process could benefit. They did this by relieving some of the capacity restraints on these machines, by letting pieces go through other machines, by making sure that quality control was put in front of these machines to make sure that the pieces that go through don't have to come back through again. Now, at first glance, this is something that really only applies to manufacturing plants and really only sounds like a really cool and awesome thing to somebody like me who studies supply chain management and really likes this sort of thing. But actually, it can also be applied to our lives in this manner. Whenever you go through your day, or whenever you go through your week, or you have to get something done in your personal life, there's always a step that's the most difficult. And you can identify this step by how much time it takes you to prepare for it, or how long it takes, or even sometimes how little you want to do that part of the process, or that step in your life. That could very well be your bottleneck. You could have one big thing that you have to do, in the middle of your day or something that's going to take up most of your time or energy or devotion to it. So it's important to identify these in our everyday lives, because if we don't, it's going to dictate our lives in a negative manner. So making sure to identify these sorts of bottlenecks and taking care of these first, or somehow making these not as much of a bottleneck for us, can be very important. The next thing we're going to talk about is productivity. Now, this picture kind of shows what most people think of when they think of productivity. You see this guy here, and he's doing a million different things at once. That seems really productive, right? A lot of times people define productivity as constantly moving or constantly getting things done. At best, these typical definitions of productivity are only halfway right. The book defines productivity, true productivity, a little bit differently. It's accomplishing a task that moves you closer to the main goal. If this guy right here in this picture, his whole goal was maybe here with the computer you see down at the bottom right, but he's doing all these other things, that's not productive. Because he only has one main goal, and it's that, and he's not dictating his time to it. In this picture here, we see a lot better, a lot closer definition of true productivity as the book defines it. You see that the top arrow points to doing things right, and the right arrow says doing the right things. When you're doing the things right and you're doing the right things, that is when you're productive. Doing things in general and getting lots of things done isn't always productive. An example in your everyday life. This happens to me way more often than it should, but sometimes if you have a major exam coming up and you know you've got to study, and you're sitting there and you're looking at your open book and you realize you do not want to study at all, and so you go off and you do something productive. You clean, you run errands, you cook a meal or something, for later on in the week. Whatever it is you choose to do, you think, oh, it's okay, I didn't study as much as I thought I was going to, but I was really productive. I did laundry, I did these other things. But that's not really productivity. Just because you're getting something done, just because you're getting a chore done, doesn't mean you're being productive if your main end goal is to get an A in that class. So the next thing we need to talk about is the main goal. So the goal is the most important part of anybody's life or any business or any organization. And I mean, that's even the title of the book. So in the book, the characters are constantly having to go and try to identify what their goal of their business is. And in the beginning, they do lots of different things to try to identify that goal. They try to define that goal as producing more product. They try to define that goal as making a more higher quality product. But none of these were truly the goal. Every time they came at another definition of their goal, they realized they were just chipping away at a much bigger piece. There's a much bigger puzzle that they were trying to fit these pieces into. And what they realized at the end was their sole purpose was to make money. That seems really simple at first glance. The goal is just simply to make money. But without that main goal in mind, other parts of your business aren't going to make sense. Or you'll end up doing things the wrong way or for the wrong reasons. And that, as we learned in our definition of productivity, can be counterproductive because you're not actually moving towards the main end goal. Now this is easy to apply to everyday life. Everybody has a million things to do all the time, especially in this day and age. However, there should be one or two main goals in your life at all times. If you're not constantly going towards making those goals and making those goals happen, the things you're doing in your life are not going to be considered productive at the end of the day. They just aren't. So, just to kind of summarize everything up, I talked to you guys about three main principles in this book. The first being the bottleneck theory, then the true definition of productivity, and of course, the goal itself. These three principles mostly apply to manufacturing and industry and business in general. But if you take a closer look, this book is a really good way to live your life as well. Thank you all. I hope my true audience and my virtual audience all enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you.